All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Josh Levine. Josh, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show, man.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I want to start by giving a shout out to Brad Englert because Brad was the one that originally connected us. Quite a few months ago, he connected us, and you and I probably would have never met if it weren't for Brad.
No,
And I just want to honor that relationship because I mean, man, what a testament to what this podcast is all about, which is relationships. And so, what I'd like to do, Josh, I want to start off. I want to turn it over to you so that we can set a little bit of context and we can let the listeners know a little bit about, who you are and just really what inspires you to do what you do. So why don't we just, start by talking a little bit, whatever you feel led to share about the work you do, the people that you serve through your business, the impact you're making. Maybe you just want to share even also a little bit of background of how you even got into doing what you're doing now and stuff. Whatever you feel led to share, it's just wide open.
perfect. So let's maybe start with Brad because I think Brad is a
Sure.
good jumping off point. Brad, I know Brad through the LBJ school at the University of Texas. He and I serve on the advisory council there and are both alumni of the school. And so Brad is an immensely thoughtful guy. I've gotten a lot out of getting to know him, and I'm thrilled that he was able to introduce us. And so Brad Brad and I come from a similar place in the sense that our thinking around public service and our thinking around how organizations can function best in a society and in a market with an eye towards serving their customers and serving their employees extremely well. I think Brad and I are both cut from the same cloth in that way, and I admire a lot of his work there. And we talk about sort of how you like lenses and how you see the world, right? My work is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a co-founder of a company called Thorian. We were very young. We've been, in stealth mode for a few months, just now active a few weeks. And when you hear this podcast, you'll likely will be out in the market with a new product helping people explore the Texas legislature using AI, getting a lot of additional information, digging into different bills, their impacts, how everything works, and really what that speaks to is our impact as a company. What we do is we build custom data sets with AI, allow organizations to learn about information, pull different information together across different modalities, and then query it like an expert would think about that topic if they were just searching for something themselves. So an expert would sort of break things into categories, create your heuristics, and really dig in deeply to find a core answer, pull a needle out of a haystack. And without a lot of data science work, and really before the advent of AI, that kind of work was very, very difficult for a person to do. And with the help of AI, with the help of the processing pieces that we're doing on the front end, we are able to group, categorize, and retrieve data really, really efficiently. And so you talk about that technological capacity, and we're working with all kinds of clients, corporate clients, law firms, consultancies, big companies, small companies, right? That's what we do. But then the lens that we see the world through is how do we help empower people's thought processes? How do we use the skills that we have to make the world a better place to impact people? So whether I'm working with a big for-profit company or I'm putting free content out there about the legislature, we're still thinking about organizing information, organizing thoughts, and then building outwards in a way that's designed to help people. So hopefully that's like a sort of trying to tie a couple things together. I don't know if I stuck the landing, but there we go.
So I'm curious now, what is your long-term vision for this? So you're talking about Texas legislature. Are you going to expand this eventually? Like, are we talking all 50 states? I mean, what's your vision for this, Josh?
So the vision is really, can we change the way that people gather and organize data at scale and do it without any sort of DevOps or development data science skills on
Okay.
the front end? So that could be a consultancy that's trying to get smart on a specific topic, they need to gather research papers and web data and internal interview notes all in one place, query them in custom combinations, and then draw insights out of them, pull those insights into a report that they're publishing for a client, and push that through. We can do that in a fraction of the time, right? So that's kind of an example of what we're doing, but it's really about how do we make information easier to gather and retrieve? And if you think about AI in general, right, the amount of content in the world and the amount of data in the world is increasing exponentially.
Yeah.
So AI is very, very good right now at generating content. So you see a lot of people who are writing reports with AI. There's grant creation with AI. There's blog creation with AI. You can, have ChatGPT write an essay for you. And what AI is really very, very good at, and what it's doing there is that you're really sort of feeding it a lot of data and it's running a highly complex statistical analysis to try to figure out what is the best possible answer to your question of write me a paper on Hamlet, right? And so AI is very good at guessing at that. It doesn't do like true human creative stuff that well. And so I'm trying to focus on using AI in a way that makes it easier for humans to do true creative stuff. And for me, that means managing volumes of information and drawing connections within volumes of information that are so large and so diverse that people would really struggle to manage that. But something with the processing power of AI combined with some careful machine learning and some careful structuring on the back end, we can make those connections and make that data work either much, much more efficient or even possible when it would have been impossible in the first place.
Wow. Wow. This is really fascinating stuff. And I, for one, am excited to stay in touch with you, just kind of get updates along the way about what's going on and stuff. And so, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I want to switch gears just slightly, and I'm going to reiterate the question around relationships for the benefit of our listeners. So, Josh, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Josh, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we were chatting a little bit offline about this
Yep.
earlier. I think there's a couple of different kind of branching ways we could approach this. I think keeping the public policy hat on for a minute, I think that one of my most important relationships that has shaped my life so far has been my relationship with the policy community here in Austin and specifically at the University of Texas. And
Okay.
so you think about, I mean, we all have like the most important like professional and personal relationships in our lives, and that goes without saying, right? So there's my wife, there's my co-founder, there's my family, right? And these are all people that we are inextricably tied to that are extremely important to us, right? But you're talking about something slightly different, which is nurturing meaningful and important and timely personal and professional relationships that have changed your trajectory. And I feel like with all of these particular people that I just mentioned, these are people that I have grown with. And the community that has impacted that the most for me has been this policy community for me here in Austin. So when I finished college, I went directly into policy school at the age of 22. I was hot-headed. I was very self-assured. I wanted to prove myself. I was a very good student as a college student. I felt confident that I'd be a very good policy student. And what I recognized when I got there was that I was one of the youngest people there, and my experience was absolutely dwarfed by the experience of all of these, extremely smart professors, but also other students who had done a lot of really interesting things from really, really different and diverse backgrounds. And my relationship with the policy school started with me having to level up my game. I really had to challenge myself to think differently. I had to use better reasoning for my arguments. I had to be a better listener. I had to support my arguments with better sourcing, with more thoughtful sourcing. And that was really immensely important for me. I felt like I had stepped into a larger pond. When I got to my master's program, and from there, growing from, okay, I'm trying to tread water, I'm trying to figure everything out, to, okay, I want to take on some leadership positions at the school as a student, to joining the alumni board as an alum and really staying involved. Being connected to the community and my relationship with that community has opened so many doors in terms of people that I've been able to meet that have helped further my career along, people who I've been able to help, being able to see the school grow across four different deans, across, 15 years. It's a living, breathing entity that creates as much opportunity as you put energy into it. And I think that a relationship with an organization like that and with a school like that is really special, and is it's important, I think, especially in today's policy environment at the national level, to continue to invest in higher education and in communities like the LBJ school, where people can think and argue and learn and challenge themselves and then give back to that community in a professional context later.
Yeah. Wow. That and you had also shared with me before we hit the record button about just a unique circumstance where you were the last guy in, and I really want to have you talk about that whole experience because, like we and I would be one about pretty much everybody that's listening in on this. We've all had an experience like this, like Josh is going to talk about, where a pivotal thing happened that when we look back on it, it causes it because like I've had that when you were talking about this, I'm like, oh, I've had a couple like that where that if that one thing didn't happen, it would have completely changed a different trajectory, and who knows where that went. And probably it might not have been bad or anything like that, but I'm really glad that it took the trajectory it did, and I'm really glad that one thing happened. And so I'm really stoked to have you share the experience that you're now going to share, man.
Yeah, it's a very good prompt. I appreciate it. And it's a fun story. So this all leads to all the stuff I was talking about, the career, the policy community, everything sort of. You think about like your life as a series of branches, right? You make a decision, some, pathways open, some pathways close, right? And I think that one of the most like visible and important branches in my life was when I was a college student. And so my freshman year of college, I I was not 100% ready to go to college. It's similar to when I went to grad school. I needed to level up. I was not ready to go to college. My best friends in high school were my tennis team, and they were all year. Many of them were a year younger. I had a girlfriend that was a year younger. They were all going into their senior year. I was going to leave home. I wasn't ready, and I had a miserable first semester of college, and was thinking about, am I going to transfer? Am I going to, what am I going to do? And what ended up happening was uh, there was a couple guys in my Spanish class, so people who I felt like I really got along with, but never really hung out with outside of Spanish class. They invited me out of the blue to be the 10th guy in a 10-person living learning dorm, which, I mean, the amount of sort of community service that was required and the amount of community service that we actually did is debatable. But we did have an amazing time there. But they had asked, I think, four other people before me. They were a group of nine, and I was the 10th. And I did not know anyone other than those two guys going in. And basically had to make a decision, is like, do I jump and just say, okay, I'm just gonna go for this? Or do I, transfer and try again somewhere else? And I jumped, and these guys ended up being my best friends in the whole world. They were, groomsmen at my wedding. We see each other all the time. My wife was good friends with them. Ended up sort of building a relationship with her. So, wouldn't have gotten married to the person I married, wouldn't have stayed at the school that ended up nurturing my interest in policy and got me to the school and got me to entrepreneurship, I don't really know what I would have done. And I think it's not, to your point, not necessarily that we can say for certain, oh, my life would have been horrible if this hadn't happened, but I think this is among the most specific branching moments in my life that kind of led to everything else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
seemingly random. At least it felt random to me at the time.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you were even in this kind of state of wondering what you were even going to do, and certainly you weren't set on like I'm going to stay in college. You were just kind of like really kind of doing some soul searching of what you even wanted to do when that opportunity presented itself and stuff. And so now I'm just kind of like, you met your wife through that. What are some other things that have happened in your life since that time that also would not have taken place if not for you being in that situation that came out of that?
So, um, I would say that like my decision to go to policy school came largely from I always liked political science and that was my major, but I decided I wanted to get a master's and I wasn't going to go to law school in part because I was trying to walk on to the tennis team at Vanderbilt, which is where I was at did my undergrad, and I got injured between my sophomore and junior year. And I was really, really on the bubble. And then when I got injured, that was gone and I had to reinvest. And so I joined student government, which was sort of my first big leadership experience ever and sort of helped get me very much back aligned with policy and politics, especially at a time when I was thinking about going to law school, wasn't sure if I had maybe transferred to a smaller school and made the tennis team, maybe I wouldn't have been as focused. Maybe I wouldn't have ended up back in Texas. I think that that's really important. I think, um, yeah, it's really like it's one of those things where it's almost hard for me to imagine a counterfactual because you end up at that point. It's like, well, I'm just extremely grateful that that happened because
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I would have ended up somewhere. I would have been fine,
Yeah.
but I don't know where that is. And I think it's a whole completely different life unexplored. But it's a life unexplored in a way that I'm grateful that I didn't have to explore it because my
Yeah.
life is better having gone this direction. And really, I just the decision to just say yes and join that living situation was a really just uncertain choice that I leapt. So
Yeah. I feel you, man. I feel every bit of it because I look back at my own life on those kind of experiences and I'm like, you know what? I am incredibly grateful for the path that I've been down all these years because it got me to right here, right now, today.
yeah,
And right here, right now, today is a pretty awesome spot. And I'm really stoked about the future too and what the future holds. But I'm just thoroughly enjoying just being on this journey and stuff. And I can tell that you totally are too. And so
really
that's really
grateful. So I started working with a coach at the start of 2024.
okay.
And one of the one of the earliest exercises that we did was this sort of exercise where you sort of like you close your eyes and you imagine yourself, you know, 80 years into the future, right? You're old and you're happy and you're successful and you can sort of imagine what your life feels like and looks like. And then in looking backwards, that earned wisdom, the fact that you've already earned that wisdom allows you to sort of put everything that you're dealing with in the present time in perspective. And so one of the lessons is kind of like you are also a mentor. You're also that like person in the future to the past versions of yourself.
Yeah.
It's sort of so like I look forward and I say, with this future wisdom that I have, what are the important things that I'm thinking about and facing right now? And which things can I just let go? Which things are not so important? And I think that when you reflect on the past, you're also, I think, you are the mentor and the wisdom that existed when you were younger that hadn't quite come out yet. And so I think that like one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the relationship that I have with these friends is that they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They saw the version of me that they wanted to be friends with, and that could be, at least a tolerable roommate for at least 1 year. At a moment when I definitely did not see that in myself.
Yeah.
And, trying to think backwards of like, okay, what are if that part of me it was there, even at a moment when I didn't see it, at a moment when I was struggling and I didn't appreciate that part of myself, what are the parts of myself that exist now that I can't really tap into yet that I'm going to be really grateful for, 20 years into the future. I think that's like, you think about time in this sort of interesting and continual way, what how do we be have gratitude for the people we are in the present? I That's something I struggle with a lot. But then I can certainly have gratitude for the lucky breaks and the things that people saw in me in the past when I didn't see them. And so it's like, what are the things I look back on in the future that are going to feel the same way? So I know maybe I'm taking this a little bit off track,
No, that
but
is totally
it's an
cool.
interesting thought process, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting because I have a buddy of mine who lives down in Austin, Jesse, and he talks about the same kind of stuff. He kind of calls it time piercing, and where just your future self can advise your current self,
Yeah.
and it's a really interesting dynamic. And so I'm totally with you, and I totally feel what you're talking about because I've had those experiences and stuff. And I too am incredibly grateful for the people in my life, Jesse being one of them, who saw things in me that I did not even see in myself at that time, not even close. But he saw it and he kind of helped cultivate that in me. And man, I look at what's going on in my life to this day, and I'm just like, wow, this is so awesome because I'm just continuing to step into that and just continue to lean in and just become as effective as possible at doing what I do and serving the people that I serve. And it's just like I said, it's a beautiful journey, and the better it gets, the better it gets, and it's just a learning process. And sometimes we do stuff that doesn't work out. Well, that's a learning process. That didn't work. We'll try something else. And
And you
so
talk about like entrepreneurship too, which is, I think, it's especially true for entrepreneurs like us, where you end up in a situation where, particularly at an early stage, that that feedback isn't always as easy to come by. It's harder to measure yourself. If you can measure yourself on revenue or on, fundraising amounts and things like that. But I think it's harder it sometimes can be hard to see that progression in the same way because it being an entrepreneur is deeply isolating. And so when you get those breakthrough moments, when you can reflect on them in the past, that helps a lot.
yeah. And it's cool to be able to have folks around that we can celebrate those wins with. Because you're
Yeah.
right, it is deeply isolating in so many ways. And even, I mean, I hang out with some amazingly successful entrepreneurs who are doing such big things, who are making such a huge impact in this world. And yet, one of their biggest things is just being able to find people in their life that they can truly trust and confide in,
Yeah.
and the more successful they get, the smaller their circle becomes of people they can truly trust and confide in. And it's very real, and it is lonely. And there's even the suicide rate among successful entrepreneurs. I mean, man, it's just I just lost a close friend last year and at the end of last year and
I'm
stuff, and
sorry.
it's just it's really heartbreaking when that happens because I'm like, man, if I would have known what they were going through, I would have tried to help, but like we didn't know. And so, but you're right, it can be lonely, and to just be able to be that friend and that person that just makes ourselves available to the people in our lives and stuff, and just checks in on them. I mean, heck, I just did a check-in with a friend of mine yesterday. Just sent an email because I hadn't talked to him in like almost a year, and found out that her husband died in a car wreck in August and stuff. I'm
Oh
like,
my
wow,
God.
I had no idea, because we
Yeah.
hadn't talked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I said, Grace, if you would like, I would totally be down for making time for us to catch up and just give you a listening
Yeah.
ear and stuff. And so she did. She grabbed a time on my calendar, and she's doing better now. But you know what? It's still pretty fresh because this was only
Sure.
in August,
Yeah, it's really
And
recently.
so,
Gosh.
yeah, yeah. And so, well, Josh, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come here today and just share from your heart. Any last thing you feel led to share before we kind of wrap things up here and stuff?
So, I think to close the loop on this like entrepreneurship conversation, right? I think one of the things that I struggle with is you as an entrepreneur, you have a vision of yourself, right? It's like I am, a successful entrepreneur and these are the values and the traits that see in myself that I want to put out in the world. And your battle as an entrepreneur is sort of to make that internalized version of yourself a reality while also fighting back against like the worst version of yourself. And so I think that one of the reasons why, to your point and to the podcast's point, right, is if you can invest in relationships that help put you in a place where you feel like your best self often and allow you to act as that best version of yourself, you can sort of create the reality that lets you be the person you want to be. And I think that that's, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're doing something else, like that is so important, is to sort of live the life you want to live. And a friend of mine gave me this piece of advice that I hold really close, which is he chooses his work and the way he spends his time because it lets him use his brain the way he likes to use his brain and like feel the way he likes to feel. And that's his number one requirement for everything that he does. And I just think that that's such a good way to think. And, something that can be empowered and augmented by the people you have around you. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I I am so intentional about who I spend my time with, and who I invite into my world and stuff, because you're so right. Who we hang around with and who we spend time with and who we learn from and who we mentor and all of that. It is so important. It just really shapes who we are. And people will either empower us or they will detract us. And we want to surround ourselves by people that support and empower us, and will also just be straight with us, and tell us when we're batshit crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
So, well, Josh, for anybody listening to this going, man, Kev, I really like Josh. I'm also really intrigued by some of the stuff that he shared and some of the stuff that he's working on. How can people find out more about you and the work you're doing? Any websites, any resources we can share with them?
Yeah, please. Check us out at thorian.ai.
Okay.
That's our website. By the time you hear this, the legislature topic will likely have been launched. So definitely check that out and engage with it. Use it to learn about the legislature. And then we are working on a lot of other data kinds of projects. We're using the legislature as sort of a platform to celebrate the kind of data work that we're doing. So if you have a different kind of data problem, definitely also please reach out to me. I'm findable on LinkedIn. That's I know I have a common name, but if you look for Josh Levine Thorian or Josh Levine Austin, I'll show up and send me a message, and that's usually the best way to find me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Josh, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you. And I'm stoked to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So thank you.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much.